I represent the Nigerian Association, London and Area, also known as NALA. I am the president and my name is Seyi Osunade. We are the Sports Fiesta, being sponsored by the association, and we are a community non-for-profit working towards creating an impact in London and the area. The Nigerian community is blessed with a lot of people with potentials, and we represent a diversity within a country, because within Nigeria there are so many ethnic groups, and we all have all come together as one to be a nation, to be a group within Canada.
Hello, everyone. My name is Olabode Desire. I am a member of the Nigerian Association of London and Area, and I'm currently the General Secretary of the association. It's a wonderful thing to be part of this association. It's a great opportunity to also serve, and I also trust that the association is going greater heights by God's grace. If you ask me my view about Nigerians generally, whether in London, in Hamilton, in Edmonton, in Newfoundland, I'll tell you the story of a very zealous, a hardworking, diligent set of people. We are, diverse in our thinking, in our mindset, but at the same time, we are go-getters. We give everything that we need to, give to make sure a project is executed, is done, is implemented. And that is one of the things I'm proud of, being called or, being associated to that name, Nigeria.
On the field behind me, you will see a lot of people playing soccer, what we call football in Nigeria. These people are from different ethnic groups, and they've been able to coordinate themselves together with one purpose in mind. So Nigerians living in Canada are already used to cultural diversity, because our music, our dressing, our languages represent different ethnicity, and we've been able to manage all these together. So in Canada, Nigerians are able to adapt to the cultural diversity very, very well. We are currently talking about cultural diversity and anti-racism. We're looking at how the Nigerian community is coping with the various cultures that we're mixing with, and how we're handling discrimination and prejudice in terms of employment, transportation, housing, and so on. This project is being funded by the Canadian Race Relations Foundation, CRRF, with funding from the government of Canada.
Hi, I'm Claire. I'm a master's student at Western, and I live here with my husband and my 2 kids. On the issue of racism, I relocated to Canada last year, August. So I would say I've been here for like about a year. And thankfully, I've not had any experience of racism. But then sadly, I still live with the fear that one day, I may experience that, in as much as it's not something I'm looking forward to. But then, unfortunately, that's a sad reality people like us living in a country like this. No matter how diverse, the community is, you still live with the reality that, you may step out one day and then you're faced with the ugly situation of racism. I mean, I have 2 kids, 2 boys, and every day before they go to school, I always say a prayer like, I hope this is not the day that the system happens to them. As Black boys living here, it's not something you can wish away, but then it's something that we are hoping that they don't get to experience the ugly side of living as a Black person in another country that is not yours.
Ask me about racism. Again, I would say it's a general, global phenomenon or problem. It's something that is there, whether in your face or maybe behind you, or systematic kind of. But it's there. It's something that the awareness needs to be out there. Like every opportunity that we have to preach the message of racism. It's something that is eating deep into thinking, into the way we behave, even to other people, the way other people even see us. So it's a thing that shouldn't be um, a topic we shouldn't throw away into the dust. So again, it's something that we're trying our best to address, and that is one of the reasons why we came up with this program, with this campaign of anti-racism. We're using this moment to preach the message of racism, and stop the hate, stop the prejudice, stop the discrimination. Let love go around. Let love be the language. Whether you're white, black, European, American, African, it doesn't matter. What matters is your art and the connection we have, with every other human. So the message again has to be preached. It is something that we can't keep quiet about. It affects every day of our lives, and I'm glad there's an opportunity to have this kind of message shared among our Nigerian community, as well as people elsewhere in different parts of the world.
My name is Adiola.
My name is Adebola.
So we immigrated from Nigeria and we're citizens now of Canada. Have you been discriminated against before? Yes.
Yes.
So to elaborate, we actually had an experience last week when we went to a store, Indigo, in London, and we noticed that we were being followed around by a staff there. And we just kept noticing that the staff, everywhere we went, he kept following us around. So then when we went to pay for what we bought, we asked to speak to the manager. And the person who was following us around was the manager. So we just talked to him being like, oh, you were following us around the entire time. And then he was like, oh, no, I wasn't following you around. I didn't even notice that you came into the store. And then we were like, oh, no, we made eye contact a lot of times. And he kept saying, oh, I promise you I didn't even notice you in the store. And I'm like, whatever you say, but you were following us around. And we didn't really appreciate that. And it made us very uncomfortable. So that's one way I have been discriminated against before. And yes.
Yeah. Also, a couple months ago, we went to Olabode to get cake. And we didn't get attended to. We were standing there for a good 15 minutes until someone came. And when they did, they attended to the people that had just gotten there, and we were the ones who asked for service. And they would leave and then only come when other people came, even though we were obviously waiting to be attended to. But yeah, we didn't really say anything for that one, but it's just little things.
The issue of racism is what a lot of people find challenging, because when we come, for those who immigrate, those who come in with qualifications, they come in with experiences that are more than what is required for employment, are not selected. And a lot of people find this troubling. They have to reschool, they have to reskill, they have to start at a lower pace, and thereby getting frustrated in committing with their whole hearts to the country they have chosen to be a part of.
My name is Yusuf Gaya from the northern part of Nigeria, Kano to be precise. I am the former secretary of Nigerian Association of London and Area, NALA. I've been in Canada for 8 years, and then I haven't actually been a direct victim of racism, but you know how it is, systematic racism, so it's indirect. And then here, as you can see, I just finished playing a game with the Nigerian Association over here. As you can see, yeah, it's a great thing to have an activity that will bring us all together as a society and as a community. And then being from the northern part of Nigeria, where actually not many here. So this gives me a good sense of belonging, knowing that I'm here with my Nigerian people and having a good time, and as we are all together as one.
My name is Ayola Alayirogun, and I have here with me my son, Sobena Iremide Alayirogun. We migrated to Canada 2019-2020. Racism hasn't been very pronounced from the much of my experience. I've had to mix both at work and at play. I've mixed with a lot of different folks from different skin types and races. It's not been very pronounced, maybe because we've got a multicultural environment in London, and that general acceptance that that multicultural general acceptance that we have across the community is permeating with the way everyone relates with each other. There may be racism, but I have not really experienced it. It's been a wonderful time living here, staying here in London, and I believe the more we've got immigrants coming in, the more it's going to keep diluting the, that perception, that delineation, and there'll be much more mixtures of people, of cultures, of backgrounds. And I believe if at all there's racism in any places, it's going to get lower and lower by the day as the population is getting stronger and better multiculturally.
We are looking at, with this project, to see how we can connect and build up our people's Nigerian Canadians to build their capacity to handle cultural diversity, to handle racism, so that in doing all this, in integrating into the society, they will be able to do the right thing at the right time with the right resources, and they're able to identify resources that they will be able to work with.
My name is Patrick. I'm a proud Nigerian, and I'm resident in London, Ontario. I've been in Canada for 2 years and a few months. My experience so far has been a pleasant one, thankfully for the community of Nigerians here. Of course, the association is Nigerian Association of London and Area, popularly goes by NALA. Thankfully, I've been able to meet amazing people within the community, like too numerous for me to begin to mention names, but then they've really helped me settle in from people I would never have met if we didn't have activities like what's going on behind the scene right here. Because for most people, it's been from playing together, playing soccer together, that I've been able to meet and interact with them. And we've built a very strong and formidable network. We're trying to help ourselves with work, businesses, different things. And on the issue of racism, as absurd as it is, it's really disturbing to know that there are still a lot of people who consider our skin color a problem for them. I worked somewhere for privacy reasons. I wouldn't mention the name, but then I remember a couple of weeks ago, I had someone who came in and then said something very funny, but nasty on the other hand to me, saying, "Oh, the other day she saw me at work. I was laughing with a white lady, and then that she just wanted to let me know that the fact I was laughing with a white lady makes me nothing. I should remember I am black, and I shouldn't think of myself, highly." And I was puzzled, and of course, at that point, I realized that be it as it may, there are still people with that myopic mindset. There was nothing I knew at that time I could say to the lady, but then I just pondered at how ignorant people can be. We're Africans. We're proud to be who we are. We're people of color. Personally, I don't even I agree with the whole idea of tagging us blacks, because truly we're just a people of color with all so much in us. On the issue of racism, it's really something I wish a lot of people would take away whatever pre-notions they have about people of color and come to realize that we're just as amazing, as they consider themselves. And, if they can also look into our culture, the depth of our culture, the uniqueness, that we carry. Africans, Nigerians in particular, were very tenacious. Our energy, we bring the energy to everything and everywhere. It's something also I'm thankful, like my managers at work can attest to. Like when I show up at work, it's energy, it's passion, it's joy, it's just someone who is coming to serve. And that's basically what, we've grown up all our lives to know, that wherever it is we are, just ensure you give out that excellence, right? So that's basically what we represent. So again, I'm saying I really do hope that people all over realize that truly the color of our skin can't divide us. We're one people under God. We're one people under heaven. And, the earth is ours, to enjoy. And then together we can always make every place, every land, everywhere we find ourselves as beautiful as we want it.
This is Mustafa Aboud. I'm from Iraq, from Middle East. I came to Canada since 2017. I was immigrant, because the war happened in my country. So we all leave my country. We're looking for a peace country. I want to just say for Canada, thank you so much to bring me here and to help me and to support me. And I wanna tell you about my story. I'm so happy to know a lot of people from Nigeria and from Africa. Actually, it's nice guy, and there is support me to play together in Canada. So we're gonna take about the races. Races is not in Canada. Races is outside Canada because we are all human. We should to support each others. There is no difference between white and black. We are a human, so we should to support each others.
Yeah, it's just like little like microaggressions too.
Yeah.
And just little things that it might not even be like something that someone says, but it's just the way they act, their body language, the way they carry themselves around you, the way that like when you enter a room, you notice that like the energy shifts just because you've just walked into that room. So it's not always like the way a person talks, but it's also how they like interact with you and how they make you feel comfortable. And there's just sometimes when you walk into a place and you just don't feel very comfortable and you know that, oh, it's because you're black or because you look a certain way. So yeah, just little microaggressions like that have just been ways that I think I've been discriminated against in Canada.
We are looking at, with this project, to see how we can connect and build up our people's Nigerian Canadians to build their capacity to handle cultural diversity, to handle racism, so that in doing all this, in integrating into the society, they will be able to do the right thing at the right time with the right resources, and they're able to identify resources that they will be able to work with. So as we go on with this project, talk with people, you will see different life stories, lived experiences in terms of racism, in terms of cultural diversity, and you will see that the average Nigerian loves Canada and is ready to contribute and commit to the growth and development of Canada. We wish Canada all the best. Long live Canada. Thank you so much to Canada Race Relations Foundation for the funding that is supporting this project with support from the government of Canada.
I was looking at the curriculum of the Canadian Race Relations Foundation because for this to take place, I have to go through the curriculum, know what they are looking for. So out of that, I took out some objectives, and these are the objectives we have here. So what we are going to do is highlight the history of Canada and look at the road to cultural diversity. What does it mean? And what does multiculturalism mean? So in other words, how did we get to where we are right now? So we looked at the historical mistakes and the present implications of these mistakes in Canada. I came to Canada a long time ago. That was 1994. And one of the books I read was called Canada, Not Yet the Promised Land. But we know that it might be a promised land for a lot of us, but it's still a broken promised land. So part of what we need to do is to see how to fix it, to make it better for us. Yeah, that kick it. So we look at historical mistakes, present implications for us as we are here. So we discuss and reflect on the lessons we're learning. So we're going to think deeply for the short time that we have about the history of this country and how that history impacts us. And then we identify how racism impacts the daily lives of racialized people. Not everybody is racialized, even though everybody has a race. So we look at that. Then we identify what we can do to work towards eliminating racism. and then foster participation and interaction among us as best as we can. So these are the methods that I was hoping to adopt. I will still adopt some of them. The first one will be storytelling. Most of us here are Africans or of African descent. We like stories. That's how we pass information across. So in academics, it could be ethnography or narrative method. Okay? But that's what we're going to do. Reflecting is just about thinking through, ruminating through what we're doing and what the country means to us. Then we'll try and discuss. And I'm going to try not to talk too much because in a gathering of Nigerians, when people talk more than 5 minutes, other people will check out.
So that's part of the cultural diversity that we have. It's our sense of differentness. We are all very different. Even when we get people from the same country, they will still be different. On the basis of, it could be ethnicity or tribe, it could be cultural festivals, everything is different. I attended a funeral in Windsor, Ontario about 2 weeks ago, and the person that was buried was from like the Midwest. I didn't see anybody putting gele on and everything. Everybody was in black and they were dancing. And the dance was much more like a Lebanese dance than I've ever seen in a Nigerian gathering. So within our diversity, there are further diversities there because we're all very, very different. So that includes ethnicity, includes language, and how we are different from each other. So then the idea of the mosaic as opposed to a melting pot. Because when you go to America and you live in America, people want you to leave your culture behind and be Americans as much as you can assimilate. There's still an assimilationist process here in Canada, but the country is built up in such a way that you can still keep your culture. So that is why we have that there. You paint on the canvas. So bring your culture, we recognize it. And that's why they had the Multiculturalism Act, produced in 1971 and 1988 to just say, yeah, we recognize different ethnicities. That is what makes our country better. But we that are within those ethnicities, we should not shy back. We have to present what we have so that the country can be better than it is. So also in the midst of all that is this concept of intersectionality. So that is the interactions of our identities. How do they interact together? Because it's the interaction of our identities that make us have different and unique experiences. So two of us can walk down the road and we'll have different experiences. It's because of our interacting identities. I'm a male, right? My experience will be different from what a female will feel in any situation. So, but if I'm a white male, that experience will even be different. If I'm a black, Christian, disabled male, that experience is going to be different. So when somebody says, this is what is happening to me, and you say, no, it's not happening, you have to be very careful because you don't know what got them there. So it's this idea of intersectionalities. We have unique experiences. So we need to really sit down and learn from each other and see how we help each other. So the idea of race is socially constructed because we all belong to the human race. But somehow it has worked for a group of people to have different stratum. You know, some are white, some are black, some are indigenous, you know. And it's because of the oppression that is attached to that. Race is not just about color because I've never seen a white man in my life. The people I see are close to pink, right? There are only a few black people on earth. The people you see most of the time, they are maybe brown skin or vanilla, you know. So we have different hues. But what is race? Socially constructed. Because when you look at it, there was a time the Italians were not white people. They became white. The Jews became white. The Irish were actually regarded as the blacks of Europe. But they came to North America, they became white. So there's a whole history and a lot of books written about this. So in the US, you know, when you see a Mexican is white, right? When in the US, they talk about non-Hispanic whites. just to separate themselves. So that's why this is socially constructed. Some people will pass from one race to the other, because maybe of their complexion. You can see a black person that's whiter than a so-called white person. Generations of breeding and interactions will make that happen. So race is socially constructed, and we need to know that so that we don't let it trouble us so much. Then there are stereotypes about different people. So how people think about them. That is attached to prejudice. And by the way, stereotypes could be positive or negative. But the stereotypes of black people, especially in North American continent, is usually negative. So we have to change that. So prejudice is how we feel as a result of the stereotypes that we have. So those are the biases that we have. And discrimination is how people act or act towards us. So racism itself is a combination of stereotypes, prejudice, and discrimination that leads to unfair treatment based on somebody's race. If you need this presentation, we can send it to you, right? You can just send it to people that need it. So that's just broadly a lot of areas that we are going to cover. But more importantly is anti-racism. How do we combat racism? We combat it by anti-racist and anti-oppressive acts, because racism can affect our health and our mental health. It causes high blood pressure, insomnia, and all sorts of things. But the people that do not experience it, they don't know it. Sometimes we need to teach them. Sometimes we need to leave them alone and live our lives. Right? So, having said all this, I'll just briefly go here to brief history of Canada, which became the path to our cultural diversity. So how did people get here? Long time ago, indigenous people lived here. They took care of each other, right? They were growing their food. Now we call it organic and we sell it for more, right? They are growing their food. They have their communities taking care of each other, social welfare for them, nobody will go without food because it will take a village to raise a child. Every child belongs to the village. They respected the earth. They nurtured the earth. They called the earth mother. So they took care of the earth, and they knew that the earth was going to take care of them. So they have complex social structures until a group of people came and called them savages. So those were the settlers and explorers. And it's very interesting that the most prominent one, Christopher Columbus, was looking for spices. And he started traveling. What was he looking for spices for God's sake? So settled on North America, saw indigenous people, called them Indians. People started coming, they settled, they started killing indigenous people. Yeah, it wasn't like that initially. When they first came, the indigenous people helped them. They accepted them. They taught them how to survive in this climate. They were selling furs, they were trading. But then war started happening between colonists. So indigenous people were divided, they were fighting on behalf of different colonialists. So anyway, long story short, the land has been subjugated. You have the treaties, you have the non-treaties, it's a whole mess. And we're still talking about that now because was it a few weeks ago? If not, was not 2 weeks ago that the Pope came to apologize for some of the atrocities? We're going to get to that shortly too. So those are the people that came, explorers. But interestingly, there were some black people here before the explorers came. And it's very, very little known. I heard the story of Michael da Costa, who in 1605 was actually translating the Mi'kmaq language for explorers. So it's like, where did he come from? He didn't just drop out of the sky, but that happened. So they came. So there were also loyalists that came to Canada because they were fighting on behalf of the colonists. In the American War of Independence, they came, black people came, indigenous people came, white people came. The interesting thing about that is this. When they came, they located them in the area of Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and all that. They were promised a few things, that when you come, you fight this war with us, When we get you to Canada, we're going to give you land, we're going to educate your children and all that. So in Nova Scotia particularly, so they did that for the white loyalists. They are loyalists because they fought on behalf of the British Crown. But they didn't give the black people anything. They didn't give them land, they didn't send their children to school. There are even some black people begged to be sent to Africa. And they sent many of them to Sierra Leone. So in the last 50 years, the story is coming out that, there was a list of actually black people that came with white people from the US as loyalists, and the histories were destroyed. Their names were taken off the plaques that they were written on. That's also part of the Canadian legacy, because it's the good and the bad and the ugly. But we are here right now. What can we do to actually make things better? So some people came here as slaves. And of course, another not known history about Canada is the slave trade. We talk about America, we talk about how horrible that was. We talk about the Underground Railroad, because this is the land of freedom in Canada. There's actually a tree in London, 200 years old. It's around Adelaide, and commissioners I heard have not been there. Yeah. So I hope I get there. If you know that, we can talk about this. I want to go. That's where escaped slaves were actually congregating at that time, 200 years ago. So slavery here started about 1600, right? And slaves were sold in Ontario, in Quebec, Prince Edward Islands, and all that. So as a result of that, when slavery ended, there were a lot of bad laws written against black people. Okay? So other people came as refugees. We know the history of Jewish refugees and the ship that was turned back in 1948 or 1939. The Irish came here because of the potato famine. And they were actually, I understand that they came to Toronto, about 38,000 Irish people came to Toronto around that time. The population of Toronto was about 20,000. But they were welcome, the press was very good. Compare that to the Syrians that came. Of course, in recent memory, Ukrainians came to Canada. They were flown in. Can you see all the concessions they made to them, compare them to the Syrians, the Afghanistans, the Rwandese? It's not like Canada is not helping, but they help others more than others, right? So some came as refugees, that's just the short story there. And some were recruited to help build Canada, like the Chinese that came, also in the 1800s. The interesting thing about them, they got the laborers here, but they didn't allow their families to come. So the laborers they got were white Chinese. I mean, they were Chinese male. So what happened, because their families were not able to come, they even had laws against them. You cannot lust against white women. It's punishment, ground for punishment. You cannot apply for social assistance. So a lot of things happened to them. When they finished building the Canadian Pacific Railway that joined the country all over the place, they started telling them to leave. But if your family members were going to come, they were going to pay the head tax. It was first $50, then it became $500. And $500 then was about 2 years' wages. And when people clamored and they changed that law, they now made one called the Chinese Exclusion Act. We just want to exclude you. Really, really interesting. But at the same length, the waves of immigration to Canada was specifically European, Eurocentric. People who come from England, from Norway, from Northern England. I had a friend, we were talking about stories of immigration, it was from England. And I said, how did you come here? Said, my mother went to the Home Office, there were 2 lines. Some people were going to Australia, some people were going to Canada. The line to Australia was very huge. So one of those workers said to me, why don't you come here? Canada is actually better. So mother took him, they went there. A month later, they were in Canada. They got everything they needed, including a house. Canada set them up, right? But when black people come, what happens? I was really, actually, there was a story in the news, was it yesterday or the day before? This Nigerian musician, Yemi Alade, was coming to play at Quebec. They denied the visa. can you just imagine that? They were not sure she was going to go back. What will she do here? She's prominent, she's a musician. You know, things happen like that we have no control of, but we have to start talking about them now. So anyway, so some people came for a better life, you know, different classes of immigrants. So the first and second wave of immigration was from Northern Europe. But much later in the 60s, 1967 to be precise, they had 3 levels. So the economic class was there. That's when they started the point system. So they're looking at your experiences, your language abilities, your education. So what that ended up doing was Canadian immigration was open to the third world, and the best of us came to this part of the world. So that caused brain drain, right? But we are here now, then we'll come as doctors, as lawyers, as engineers. We'll start driving pizza, you know, to deliver pizza and all that. So the brain drain is happening, but the de-skilling is also happening because your skills are really taken away from you. And the guys to survive this environment, those things need to change. Because I could remember things are better now than they were 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but could still be better. So we have the family. Okay, humanitarian is about refugees coming in. So that's the class. And then some of us have children here. So that's part of the Canadian diversity too. Black people have been here for over 7 generations. But when they see us, they still ask where we are from. It's time to start asking them. When you answer, this is where I'm from, ask them where they are from. It's really important. And they will say, I was born here. I say, yeah, I have a right to this land as much as you, if not more. Some people may not be able to trace their ancestry. One of the courses I teach, I actually ask them to trace their ancestry. What brought your people here? Was it love? Was it war? Was it famine? So, but because they have the so-called white skin, they may be here 5 years ago, they believe that they have been here forever. They don't answer that question. Unless you are indigenous, you came from somewhere. So let's ask them where they came from. It just helps you to have a little bit of discussion. And that also helps them to normalize you as part of this culture and part of this land. It's very, very important. Okay? So that's the brief history I want to go to. And then there are a lot of mistakes in the past. Please, if you need a break, let me know. I may not be able to do that. So mistakes of the past, that part of the genocide of indigenous people. Some people still say it's not genocidal, but it is. When you kill people without cause, what's that? You know, it started immediately. They came, the settlers came. They actually started introducing cholera. You know, they brought blankets to indigenous people and killed a whole load of them. But in Canada, it was really very mute. In the US, they were fighting wars with them. But in Canada, it's like just like they smile to you and kill you, they have to. In the US, you know they don't like you, right? But here, it's still going on. So the genocide of indigenous people had happened. Some people are apologizing for it. Prime ministers have apologized for it. The Pope apologized for it. What did you say, sir? Just say it loud. It's still going on. Yeah, it's still going on. Sometimes we have to kind of halt it. But we cannot halt it if we are not saying anything about it. Because we are not going to take up arms against the government or anything. But we have to use our words. We have to use our presence. So slavery happened. I just want to emphasize that. And the loss of slavery is still affecting a lot of us today, even though those things have been taken out of the books. Right? So erasure of non-white people. So it's like the only history we have is the history of white people. That's not true. I'm a social worker. Excuse me. I've been teaching social work since 2010 at the University of Windsor. I came here in 2017. It was only after the Black Lives Matter happened that I knew that I was perpetrating a sort of bad education. You know what Lauryn Hill said about the miseducation? Because I was teaching white history as the history of social work. I didn't even know it, because that's how it creeps on you. There was no social work profession in Nigeria when I was leaving, so I felt this is what I should learn. Only to discover that all these white saviors that we're talking about, They were actually really discriminant against black people. I said, wow. So in the last 2 years, I've actually been re-examining my own education and trying to see where were white people, where were the black people when white people were taking all this? And then I discovered, because in the US, they have been asking the same questions. And they found out that people like Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King, Louis Farrakhan even, Malcolm X, the Black Panther movement, these are all individuals and groups that are helping black people. Guess what? They were criminalized. So while the social work pioneers were being given Nobel Peace Prizes, they were throwing our people in jail. And I was saying, should this thing be like this? So now what I'm re-examining in my own profession is the history of black people. So I want to specialize in black life. What does it really mean? I know it matters, but where are we? Why are we not saying anything? So if we are saying anything, can we have people to amplify our voices? So that's why, because when we keep quiet, it will be as if we are not there. It will be as if, people say they advertise. If you're not advertising, it's like you're winking in the dark, right? So you can be in the dark and wink. Nobody sees you. Shine a light on it. So I just want you to highlight what you're doing, shine a light on who you are, let people know you are there. Positively, though, because some people are notorious, they do bad things, and they bring shame to all of us. But that's also part of the problem, When an individual white person does something bad, they individualize it. When an individual black person does something bad, they generalize it. It should stop, and we have to be pointing all these things out. So another bad mistake is the internment of enemy aliens, and that happens in Canada. They are not aliens, neither were they enemies. You can think of the Japanese in this case, and that's the most prominent. The Italians were also interred. Internment is imprisonment without cause, right? So in British Columbia and all those areas, many years ago, during the First and the Second World War, some people were actually taken away from their homes. So Japan did something wrong. Okay, but why do you have to pick out all the Japanese in their homes? They lost their businesses, and they took them to a camp where they lived until the end of that war. So when the war ended, they were not even allowed to go back to their homes because the homes had been taken up or away from them. The businesses had been assumed by white people. So you get to the house, it's like somebody else is living there, and I say, no, this is not your house. But that was my house 3 years ago. So many of them had to leave. Do you know Dr. David Suzuki? He was born in an internment camp. A lot of people were born in internment camps. That's also part of the heritage of Canada. It's not to talk negative, but just to have a balanced idea. So it was worse for them, it's better for us now, but it can be better, much better, so that we can have this equity or equal opportunities that people are talking about. So the Canadian government has acknowledged some injustice. They apologized for them, some of them. They made restitution, reconciliation. You can think of the Peace and Reconciliation Committee. Commemoration, they can put plaques in there to say this person did well for Canada and all that. And they compensated some, But there's been refusal to acknowledge some injustice. A historian in, I don't know where she is now, I think Halifax, that area, Western Canada, about 3 weeks ago wrote an article about apologizing for slavery in Canada. Since then, she's been having death threats. This was 3 weeks ago. So if you apologize for what you did to indigenous people, apologize for what you did to Japanese, to the Chinese, even give them some money to commemorate some things, give them scholarships to do things. Why is that difficult for black people? So they have refused to acknowledge some injustice. All right? So even when the apology has been made, how authentic is an apology? That's why I actually have this crumpled paper exercise. Do you have papers? We even forgot to do the pre-survey. We'll do it as well. So I have this little exercise. It's the crumpled paper exercise, just to show you the limits of apology.
Sorry. Excuse me. Okay. So it wasn't a coincidence or a mistake or whatever that he paid with his life in 1998.
Yeah.
He was running to be a president, and forefront his main thing was to make the West pay for, compensate
reparations.
Right.
Yeah.
And him dying, I don't think it was anything within. This is my own theory.
Yeah.
That the West were responsible for his death.
Yeah,
So,
they're responsible, just as they're responsible for the deaths of a lot of African leaders, the good ones. Right? Because when they see that you want to do good by your people, they will eliminate you. Right? And some of these former CIA agents have actually come out to acknowledge that. And it's still going on in Africa, all of the African countries right now. But what I know is the people are still very important. If we can come together, Nigerian context now, that young people are coming out to say we don't agree with this. Yeah, we know that there's a tendency that the election is rigged and everything, but we still have to be vigilant as best as possible. So you can just distribute this paper. It's just for illustration purpose. It's the crumpled paper exercise. So when you have that paper, it's just to show the limits of apology. All right. I'll take one. So when you have it, I want you to crumple that paper. See how beautiful it is? Crumple it. You can put it on the floor and stomp on it. You can do anything you want to do to that paper. But don't tear it, just crumple it, destroy it. So now take that paper and smooth it out. Smooth it out as best as possible. So how well do you find that? The paper could be compared to the people, to the group of people that have gone through a lot of abuse and suffering. So when we take this out of the national level, right, how about people that suffer abuse at the domestic level in each person's home? Because the issues of violence, we have not talked about it within the black community and what it leads to. I'm talking about domestic violence. But let's go back to that. So you can see that you cannot actually make it like it was originally. So that's the limitation of apology. Even though the government is apologizing, it's never really enough. But they have to do something better than the apology. They have to try to make things right. And I think the foundation wants to make things right. That's why they are they are sponsoring things like this. How do we really make things right? So I put these things there, residues of slavery and segregation, that consists in prejudice, stereotypes, and discrimination. So I'll read this list, and if you have a story, I want you to just tell me a quick story. Because the next thing here is, how does racism impact your life? So this is a list we can work with. Prejudice, stereotypes, and discrimination. I'm assuming that a few people will have experienced some of that. So racial profiling, in what way does it affect you? Police harassment, citizen harassment at school and work. This is really interesting. You know, the police harasses you, but there are some citizens, ordinary people, that just harass you for no reason. Because sometimes they think they can get away with it. They're making the citizens arrest. Bullying and intimidation, do you experience that? Discrimination in housing, in education. Actually, until 1939 in Canada, discrimination against black people was legal. People still experience this. You overqualify for something nobody's even looking at you to do. Morgan's Valley is in Vancouver, also thriving, until they destroyed it. I learned about Priceville recently. This is in Ontario. It's a black settlement. The white people started moving in. Taken. Imagine that. You say, I just want to stay with you for a while, and you stay there, you claim it as your own. That was part of what happened. I have a list of resources, just one page, that has some videos, short I think the longest one is 44 minutes. That I just want you to kind of look at, check it out, and I have a list of books too. Not too much, not too many, that you can read. Destruction. So Priceville, I understand that many black people, they actually moved to Owen Sound. And that's why you have a lot of people there now. So all this will cause for us racial stress and trauma. And in our business or in our profession, we are actually assessing for racial trauma now. So knowing that the problems of black people are not just ordinary, they are extra special. And we have to look at it with that understanding. So this is where I want you to actually have a partner. Just dyadic exercise, just one person. Just talk a little bit. How racism impacts your daily life, if it impacts it. And I've also seen black people that say racism doesn't happen to me. I look at that as a part of intersectionality too. If you're a rich black person, the CEO of a place, everybody has to listen to you, you will experience it a little less. Because as much as they don't like you, they will still have to deal with you, so they have no choice. So just pick a partner. It could be somebody close to you, somebody beside you, and just have a quick discussion about how racism impacts your daily life. If at all. Can you talk to him? He's right here. Okay. Hello, how are you doing? Okay. It may not be, but it may be. So, we're going to go on a short break, and what will happen, I'll ask a question about who wants to share a little bit of what you heard somebody say. Then we'll go on a break for about 5 minutes. We'll get some things to eat, and if you want to eat yourself. Then we'll come back, still eating and just having a discussion. How about that? Because we have to get out of here around 10 minutes to 7. Okay. Yeah. So, would you like to share anything out of your discussion? How does racism impact your life? Yes, sir.
Well, this is actually probably more about what we discussed here.
Okay.
It's about what I have seen here. I've been here now for over 10 years. And like you said, it is very important for us to speak out. I realize many of us don't really know our rights, or probably people don't understand the system. So for me, the understanding of this country that I have when I came was that Canada is an immigrant country. Mm-hmm. So I believe it belongs to nobody. That's the way I look at it. I believe everybody comes here the country, they are making use of other people from other countries. That's the way I look at it. Because I don't get intimidated when people tell me, where is your accent from? Or where do you learn your English? And I tell them that, so you don't really understand anything? So don't you do geography? And so I'll begin to tell them what they need to know. I said, for your information, if you don't really understand what is going on. So this country, they don't just bring people here anyhow, especially from my part of the, of the world.
Yeah.
That they screen us so well that even you have to pass you have to have certain scores in English before you come to Canada. So for you to say, where do you learn your English from? Yeah. It's so sad that you don't know that Nigerian is colonized by the British.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's good for us to always speak out and have that understanding that nobody is superior to another. The immigration minister, I think he came to London about 2, 3 or 4 years ago. So we had a black, Black Heritage, Yes. So, and the man was actually telling us about a lot of, problem that he has faced, like in getting the immigrants certain benefits. And he said every time people always, challenge him. But it made us to understand that you should always speak out, that the Canadians are not doing you any good, that they are more good you do to this country than they will ever do to you. That when you come here, you do everything humanly possible to get integrated to this country you left your family, back home. The majority of them has not even left this place before. So, and again, when you start working, even if you go to school, even if government gives you loan, if they help you in one way or the other, what you're giving back will be more than whatever they might have given you.
Yeah.
So all those understanding, I believe it will help us to know how we can access some funds also, from the government, because he said there are a lot of funding that's for immigrants, the professional that want to get into the system and stuff like that. So I had a very terrible experience at work sometimes. So a guy, we were very close, he's from Colombia. So this guy, every time we, he will say, oh, Nigerian, there's a way he calls, people from Nigeria. I say, okay, you're also a gorilla from Colombia. And we joke about it. So when COVID, there was a particular variant of COVID that they said Nigerian brought to Canada. So this guy, he looked at me at work that day and he said, why you people always bring bad things to this country? And I look at him, I said, do you know you can't say that? That is very wrong for you to say.
Yeah.
So, do you realize what you have said is not good? And he was like, no, I don't care. You can go and... This is somebody from Colombia that came as a refugee.
Yeah.
So, and I told him that, okay, if you don't realize what you have done, then I will go and report. So I went to the authority and I reported. And they said, who did that? I mentioned his name. So they called him. And again, he still came back to me and was like, oh yeah, you've reported. So, what are you going to do? And I said, okay, maybe you don't realize the gravity of what you have done. Then if you don't change your tone now, I will make the HR walk you out of this store now. I work at the Home Depot.
Okay.
And he was now arguing with me. And people came and they heard our discussion. And he had to actually, because there are customers around. So, but since that time, he would never do that kind of joke with me.
Yeah.
So, a lot of us, we need to speak out, like you said, because here, people want to throw, a lot of dirty things onto us.
Yeah.
But the better for us is for us to know what our rights are.
Yeah.
So, and again, I look around, I realize that most of our children that are supposed to benefit from these are not here.
We have to encourage them to come.
So, because I don't think this discussion is actually meant for many of us.
Yeah.
We can understand, we can cope with this.
Yeah.
What about our children? My daughter, they went to the store the other day. They said every time they go to Indigo, that somebody's always, following them around.
Yeah.
And every time they complain, so the last time my daughter had to call me, Daddy, do you know what happened today? He said I had to shout, I had to yell. And I was like, why is this guy always following us when we come to this store? I said, lo and behold, it was the manager. Can you believe that? I said, well, that is very good.
Yeah.
So I think it's always good for us to understand, the concept and what this country stands for.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not disputing that there's racism.
Yeah.
People do it, but when we talk back at them and we let them realize that you don't have a better right than I do.
Yeah.
So I think that will go a long way in changing the narratives.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. Yeah. So what we are going to do, we are going to take a short break, about 10 minutes. We have to please yourself. I think the washroom.
We're actually enjoying it.
Yeah. I know it's a conversation that needs to go on. These things. What forms should recognition and apologies take? So should it be plaques and monuments in appropriate places? Could it be financial payments to victims and their families? Inclusion of events in school curricula, removal of names. So if you favor any of this, I want you to give me your opinion about what you think about these things. Yes, sure.
I will go for that financial payment.
Financial payment?
Yes, the reason being, sorry, by the way, my name is B, just to introduce myself. I'll go for that financial because the reason being, if you have to look at history and all the opportunities that had been taken away from black folks, if you have to quantify that in terms of amount and all that, it will amount to a whole lot. So I think in the United States there was this city, I can't remember the name of the city. And that city, just like the Blackville and all that, was a nice city, thriving. Yes. Oh, okay, it was thriving, and at the end of the day, we had Caucasians actually raised that city down and set it back for a whole, in fact, Tulsa. Yes, thank you very much. It was Tulsa. So, in as much as all of these points are good, I would personally want to go with financial payments because if you have to look at the disparity in terms of generational wealth, the black folks are way lagging behind. So it's one of those things that I think there's a movement presently with fighting the government of Canada about it, and I'm hoping that goes through. If it goes through, then of course it will be a good thing for the black folks. Thank you.
So we is talking about financial payments, otherwise known as because you raised your hand first.
That's okay. The financial aspect is fine as well, but for me, something actually hits me this week. Inclusion of events in school curricula will be the first for me because this week somehow, I don't know, we're driving somewhere and I and my son had a conversation about a $10 bill. And he looked at the money and went, "Oh, mommy, is that the black lady that was banned from or arrested because she was sitting in a white people movie theater?" My son is just 8. And I looked at him and went, "Where did you hear that from?" So I'm thinking, I've actually just heard it passively, but for an 8-year-old to say, he said, they taught us in school. Then I'm like, okay, that's interesting. If these things are included in school curricula, I think it will create more awareness. The kids know, like generations to come, they know what happens like with the Aboriginals. They begin to know these things, but financial payments, let's say for instance, about the Aboriginals. Money has been paid and is still being paid to certain families because we happen to be married to somebody that the father was a victim of the abuse. They pay this money through their families, but how many people know about it if you're not close to them? But if these things are taught in schools, then people know, generations to come, kids know, even the adults know about it, then we can go from there. And then money can be paid and then other things can be put in place. But, removal of names and monuments for me, it has very little significance because then when you remove it, but then behind closed doors, people are still doing it, then it doesn't make any sense. But if you create more awareness, then we know, then, how to interact with each other, then, I don't know. But that's just my own opinion.
Thank you very much. I will just buttress our points. I will go with the third option. Because our kids, they need to know what has happened to some people before now. I read about Lucan. There's a place called Lucan. So when I read the story, I was just like, really? So this thing happened? I may not be able to dive, I just quickly So I just read about there were some people from America or so. They actually brought them to that Lucan place and they just dumped them there, like, maybe they don't want them from the big city. And they were black people and they started, their life. And, they formed their own economy, building everything, and everything was going on well for them until when the white folks,
they saw that these people are making it and they are growing, and they came over, to take over that place. They killed many people, and that's how that place is dispersed from the black folks today. So I think it needs to be part of our children. One of my friend's kids, she's just 4 years. She was just like, "Why are we black?" She came to me and said, "Why are we black?" And I was shocked, like, really? I said, "That's how God created us." God created us? I said, "Yeah." And in my brain, I'm thinking like, what has happened to this little girl for her to come and say, "Why are we black?" So I think our children need to know. They need to know we can defend ourselves based on what we just said. But these kids, they don't know the history. So I will go with that one. Yeah, the money too is good, but that one's very important. Thank you.
Yes, I think people have spoken about almost every point there, which I agree with. Okay, removal of names, monuments, and memorials representing awful or bad historical figures. That can be very, very controversial. For me as a black person, if I see the plaque of someone who has done bad to my people in the past, I would definitely feel bad. But on the other hand, before that person's monument was put there, he must have done something significant either for that city, for the country, or for certain predominant race. So removing it might be offensive to them, whilst keeping it is offensive to me. So it's highly controversial. If that can be done, fine. I think I would definitely go with the first three. Now, the first one can encourage especially children who are growing up, especially when something is written to signify what that black person have done for his monument to be there. Financial payments, of course, is being done to natives. I agree with that, and it can be done to white people also. Very important one, as most people already said, inclusion in school curriculum for children to know right from the beginning. For example, my children, when we first came here, when they came in, they had a lot of friends from all races, white and so on and so on. To them, there was no racism. Even when we told them, be careful, they said, no, but no one is racist against us. We have white friends, we have this and that. Okay. But when they started applying for jobs, as even when they are still in high school, and they saw how easily white children got their jobs and they are still going around, then they started, daddy, mommy, it's true. People don't like us. So you see, so that is very, very important.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to say that everybody, I agree with what everybody has said, and just like the presenter mentioned, that removal of names, of course, it is viewed differently by different people, different races, or different regions. Just like I have said, because I remember that my children's school, they had to remove Bryson. And why? Because it was racist or something. So if they could do that, and in so many places where I think McDonald is placed, it has a sense, it triggers something in some people. And I guess we have quantified the bad being more than the good. That's why they eventually removed some of these historical figures. And we are trying to be tolerant of each other, of everyone, so that everybody can be included in the society. So if I say something makes me feel bad, or triggers some feelings in me, then we should respect it and see how that can be corrected. and I support that as well, and especially the one for the schools. Yes, if everything we knew as blacks while we were at home, even without being in Canada, we knew almost everything about, not everything, but so much about around the world. We were taught that even without stepping out of Nigeria. So why can white children here not know about Africa, not know about who we are, that we're not monkeys, and not just hate us for being black? You know, if they were actually taught the right thing, all this Black Lives Matter thing would not have escalated to this level, because of course they know if in Nigeria somebody comes as Indian or white, we won't hate them for who they are, because we already know they're human beings. So we won't even have anything except the person does a particular thing that we don't like. So why can't we be accommodated here for who we are? This is because they have been imputed with maybe the wrong things or wrong history, or even their teachers sometimes don't even know the truth. So whatever myth they have about Africa, that is what they give onto the children, and they start looking at you and they start behaving somehow. I agree very well that inclusion of events in school will go a long way. Generation upon generation will keep learning and learning. Just like we knew before we came here about whites, about North America and things like that. And the financial payments to victims and families, the only thing I can say about that is about the Aboriginals and the Indigenous, that they keep being paid because of so much that has been done against them. And I have not seen or I have not had any other set of people that have been compensated for such. So they are the only predominant ones that have been paid, and their families being paid, and their community. The plaques and monuments in appropriate places, I quite agree. Because even before we came to live in London, we came from the GTA to some historical place downtown where the first Lieutenant General lived. And the whole house, they will tell you where they gave back to their children, the history of how London almost became the capital of Ontario, and things like that. You know, things you never hear from anybody. We visited the whole house, you see the bathtub they used and how things were at that time. These are good things that will, you want to know how it started and things like that. So I agree with almost everything, just that it affects us differently. And if you're going to say about the national identity, I guess everybody has a part to play.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think.
Go on. You won't hear it, but it's working.
I think in addition to this, you have to look at how stories are told about Africa. The last speaker said something like that. You find out that the story of Africa is the story of poverty and disease all over the world, not just Canada. During this pandemic, the face of the pandemic was basically the black person. If you're reading CTV news, when they are showing patients, COVID patients, you're going to see a black person being treated by a white person. Now, monkeypox started, and I think it started in Europe. Again, the face of monkeypox is a black person. Now, some months ago, I read that the first set of black people that came to Canada were people fleeing oppression. So they came here to be saved from the oppression they were facing in America, in the US. If you go to the history that people are taught in school, there's no mention of slavery, there's no mention of any form of oppression towards black people in Canada. Somebody has mentioned that those things have to be looked at. History is, in most cases, contrived. People write history the way they want to present it.
Yeah.
So we as a people to have to make an effort to make sure that the history that is taught to our children are the correct history of history as we see it from our own perspective.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you. No, that's okay.
I mean, just in also buttressing what people have said, particularly with the third point, what I would have loved to see also here is anything that will force, whether it's codifying in law or anything apart from ticking that box when you're applying for jobs or whatever, that will force putting minorities in positions of authority, whether in banks, whether in the police. Mrs. Ako was here. Unfortunately, she left, right? So we had a program about 2 months ago or so where they brought all,
minorities program in the school, and she was there, and you could see the effect of having a principal that is black in London, what that does in motivating people and in telling them that they could, right? But where I'm going to is, you could pay off a generation, and it wouldn't move down or cascade to the next generation. But if you build, credibly, say wealth within a community, then you stand a good chance of passing that wealth down to the next generation. So, for instance, one of the major ways of making money, of becoming rich, of passing generational wealth down the line in Canada is home ownership. But most times, a black person, for instance, walks into the bank, sees majorly white advisors. Sometimes could be, a barrier, and they walk out, right? So you have one full generation of blacks who will never get to own properties, who will never get to pass down money or wealth to their children. So that for me is a barrier. So what will ensure that a TD or an RBC will have one black financial advisor in their branch? I know they did that a few years back where they had Chinese. So if you go to some TD branches, you'll see a Chinese advisor because they recognize that they have that captive market. But they did that not because they were ticking a box, but it was purely a commercial decision. But what will force them to say every bank in a particular area or every school board should have 1, 2, 3, 4 black VPs or principals, or you go to the city council, what will force them to ensure that when you go into the city, you see 1, 2, 3, 4 minorities that will tell you that if you're looking for planning permission, or if you just want to even find out how to become a builder, that there is someone to talk to. How many black builders do you have in London? Maybe not. Right? Zero. So if you don't have a black builder, how do you build wealth within that community? If you don't have a black mechanic or who owns a mechanic shop, how do you build wealth credibly? Because how do you even know how to open a mechanic shop if you don't have anyone to talk to in the city? So that for me is what is missing on this list, unfortunately.
So, and that's very important for me to and not as an association. Just before comparing the list of things going on, so that as kids or as people are having questions, we know what to it's something that we can education is very. I'll get to you. Education is very important for us. What is the content of that education? Your kids bring things home from school. It's important to just look at what they're teaching. We keep on talking, keep on asking questions. Why is this thing? I went to a restaurant. It was the restaurant of Wellington. And I looked around. There was no black person. So I asked the manager. I said, "Do you employ black people here?" She was shocked. I said, "Yeah, we have a black staff." I said, "You have just one?" It could be as simple as that. Get to a bank, look around, say, "Do you employ black people here?" They need to ask that to hearing this thing. Where are the black people? Where are all the black people here? Let them say we don't have any. But at the point at which they are thinking about that, they are thinking that something is missing and people are going to be asking the question. Uncle T, go on.
There was a CBC TV marketplace, radio and TV marketplace, about what Mr. Afiz, popularly known as MP, spoke about. The CBC marketplace staged a particular property. They put a black man there as the owner. Then they sent in 3 valuers, 3 appraisers, as they call them here. It's still on CBC. If you're interested, you'll see it there, CBC marketplace. And it was appraised. They gave it a value. Then they put an Asian man in that same property. They sent 3 appraisers there. They gave it a different value. Higher by 100,000. Yes. And then they put a white man there. They sent 3 appraisers there. It was appraised 250,000 more. Same property. So I just want to mention that. Thank you.
To point out something quickly. Racism and preferentiality and inclusion. Maybe Doctor can help us, break this down really well, because sometimes I've had this conversation with my wife, and I said, you know what, some things we label as racism technically are not racism in the real sense of it. It's just that we just want an inclusion. And I give her an instance. You were a bank manager back home in Nigeria. If there was a resume on your table and one says Hamed Idris from University of Ibadan, and you see Chriswell Morgan from University of Krishwaga somewhere in Ukraine, whatever you want to call it, and you see Bukola, whatever, for the same role, be fair to yourself. Who would you probably consider? Definitely the person that finished from University of Ibadan, or the person that finished from University of Ife, whatever you want to call it. Why? Because you have some element of connection. It is probably not racism, but of course the lady or the guy that wasn't picked may say this is a racism act. They didn't pick me because I was white, or because I came from a different country. The thing is, I just want us to draw that thin line so that we're not mixing so many things up. And honestly, I'm open to different views on this, but somehow I feel there are some things we label as racism that technically is not.
So okay, so why they're laughing? Because I'm like, no. So racism is racism, Most of it, I'm the sort of person that makes excuses about racism. People say I work I work in the community, so I get a lot of comments, and then I go back every day and I say to my husband, someone said this or did this. At what point do you decide it's racism? But whenever you find that someone has, whether it's deliberately or unintentionally said something that hurts you or done something that hurts you, it is racism. Because we are doing it, or people are doing it, a certain group of people, or people generally around the world, that it doesn't make it right. If there is a law, if there is a rule somewhere that people should employ, you should employ based on qualifications. And for some reason, I get what you mean, because we are human beings, you feel inclined to someone else. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it non-racist. If it were in Nigeria, we would say it's ethnicity, which is the sister of racism, right? So when we do it here, because we are all from different ethnic groups and we're talking about a more global context, we don't call it racism. So in that sense, what we're looking at is what does the system, what does the law say about it? It's not even about our feelings or about how we feel. If someone does this, what does the law say about it? If it's unlawful, then it is racist. If I offer employment, I have a call for employment, and I say I'm going to employ people based on certain qualifications, and then I then decide for whatever reason that I'm going to offer that employment to one person or a particular group of people, then it is unlawful. And then the reason it's unlawful is because it's an act of racism. I think we need to be really definite about that so that we don't start covering. I don't want to make excuses for people. And we do have our own issues. Even as Black people, we are racist against each other. We have all those other issues. But we can't excuse it because we are doing it. We can't excuse it because sometimes it doesn't feel. And I know we are newcomers here to some extent. Even those of us that have been here, people that have been here for very long, we are like the visitors, But when we are paying, let me ask you a question. When we are paying taxes, do we pay less tax because we are visitors? No. So, yeah, sometimes you pay more, So if you look at it from that context, you are taken as a whole bona fide human being. So let's even think about it like we're all human beings. You're a human being, so you're here, you're paying tax, and you're paying tax based on the fact that you're a human being working a certain job. So when you're also being treated, you are kind of expecting as a human being to you want that same kind of treatment back.
And in a lawful society, as where we are, I don't want to go and talk about Nigeria, but in a lawful society, when people realize that they can't do certain things because the law prohibits it, then they won't do it. But if someone feels that they can do something and get away with it, yes, they'll do it. And sometimes they'll tell you, they didn't realize or they didn't know, but they did it because they feel that they can get away with it.
I think we need to differentiate between racism and prejudice. Racism is a subset of prejudice. What we are experiencing here is a prejudice because of our race. In Nigeria, even though I don't want to dwell much on Nigeria, the type of prejudice we have could be either a tribal, ethnic, ethnic. It could be what school you attended. If the man employing is a graduate of Ibadan, if you went to Ahmadu Bello or University of Nigeria or Lagos, he may prefer that one from Ibadan, even if both of you are equally qualified. So, but here, whether you are a graduate of Harvard or you are from any university in North America, the first thing most employers will look at is your skin. Let's be honest about that. So racism is what we are addressing here. Back home, it's different. And then back to the two previous speakers, the question of, like, for example, TD employing blacks, Asian, and so on. We need to address this seriously, because in every bank we go, we see Asians there, we see other people, but hardly do you see black. I mean, I've seen blacks in TD as financial advisor, because I've talked to one lady there who is black. But how many of such do we have? But then I want to talk to ourselves. How many of us qualified in that field really apply for those places? For example, in government job, if you go to passport office or you go to CRRF, you see so many other reasons. You hardly see blacks there. You see, as if until recently, blacks in general hardly apply for government job. And we need ourselves in all these places. Yes, it will be hard. It will be harder for us to get jobs than other races. But at least let's try. If 10 people or 20 people apply, at least one will get it. Whereas others, if 10 applied, 5 will get. But let's start with that one. In the near future, will be 2. So let's not shy away from applying for any job. When I got here, my very first week, a countryman of mine, when I told him I'm this, I'm that, I would also, those white people, they won't give you a job. I said, I will get a job. Because, I mean, I've had experience in US. I studied in US. I knew how difficult it was, especially in the South, where I studied. I still got a job. It wasn't easy, but I did get. So when I got here, first of all, I concentrated on my studies. In spite of my age, I passed all my requirements. I got registered. My very first interview, I was given a job. Even though there was some hitch about it, and I think I told Doctor about my experience, how a junior was paid higher than me, even though I was made the manager there. But then that was a side story. So let us get involved. Let us get involved. We ourselves don't get involved enough in a lot of things in Canada. Thank you.
Thanks to everyone that actually participated. But I have a question, and it's something that usually comes up. It has to do with this unconscious bias. an example is at my workplace, they're having this training on unconscious bias and all that. So I just wanted us to elaborate on it because it appears to me that they will say someone is unconsciously biased about something, but that thing keeps going on and on and on. So exactly. So for me now, they say, okay, this, because I was having that conversation with my friend here. Yeah, unconscious bias. Oh, the person didn't know. The person is, this person is actually at the management level. So in my head, my assumption is that yes, this person knows a lot about this thing. So I just wanted, maybe you could help us elaborate a little bit more on that. And if there was a thin line between unconscious bias and, discrimination on its own. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Maybe just adding to his point, and it was one of the things I was discussing in this account before she left. Maybe 200, 250 years ago, it was acceptable to sell a black person. Maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, it was still acceptable and maybe not illegal to call someone a nigger. So 3 years ago, some of the things you could do 20, 15 years ago, totally illegal, that you couldn't do them. But someone who is racist, or someone who has the tendency to be racist or to express those prejudices, will still find a means of expressing those things that is acceptable today. So maybe they may not be able to call you a nigger to your face or do those things that they could do 20 years ago. But they will find, so many small ways, in those microaggression ways of either shutting you down when you're talking, standing before you and not seeing you, actually seeing through you, almost like you're not there, shutting you down, re-echoing what you just said in meeting. I'm sure you will have expressed, if you sit in meetings, you see some of these small, you're talking, and someone re-expresses what you just said. What I think you are trying to say, or what Mr. So just said. So what I teach my absolutely. So what I teach my children is watch out for those cues. That they may not call you a nigger today because it's illegal. They can't do it. But they will find very small ways of expressing those things. They will shut you down. You want to give your opinion. They don't let you talk. Or they will brush what you just said aside. So watch for those cues and point it out and correct that person. Say, I just told you. Are you trying to re-echo what I just said? Could you hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Does anyone else understand that?
Yeah, that's good. And I thank you for saying all that. Everything you said, these are examples of microaggression. Those are examples of microaggression. Go on.
Yes, I would like to say that in all that we have said about this last topic right now, I would say that I would assume that there are unwritten rules. Yes, and it is these unwritten rules that supersedes, that comes out in our body languages and not necessarily the laws that are in place. Because somebody was saying something about these things happening in at management level. Whatever happens down there at the employees side, on the employees side, maybe the supervisor side, maybe somebody was rude to a black person or something you perceived as racism, and you take it to the manager and even to the management, and you see that they don't react as they should have reacted. That means all along the line, they have the same view of what that person said, and they have validated that action. And you will be wondering, oh, but they said there's no racism, they should do something. But you just know that that is the belief all of them have. It is not as if they were taught, but that is what they have been fed in as children. Let's say, okay, we're not employing black. It's not as if it's written anywhere, but just that any black that comes in, not good enough. So everybody knows it without saying it. So you can't hold anyone to eat to say, oh, why are you not employing? Just like you went in the restaurant and say, do you employ? And she was almost blabbing. Oh, so I mean, no. It did not occur to them because as far as they are concerned, it isn't any written thing or a rule or instruction, but we don't.
So the example you just gave is type of institutionalism. It's there.
So that, because at some point in the city, I was in a group that we were fighting racism in the city, in the Corporation of London. And at that point, we were a committee set up by the City of London. We were working towards it and we were noticing it. They were trying to push us down, and you know, you have to be diplomatic. You won't say everything. At the same time, we were just playing games and they were just being silent. We were looking for ways to push in and to make sure to make sure that they understand that there is racism, and they keep saying there is no racism. Just then, we were on it. At some point, they will say, oh, it seems so, and they're not saying it with all their mouth, you know, but they will do as if it is there, and we're pushing that a spot be created, a position be created. And just then, George Floyd happened. Oh, immediately it happened. They were just running after us. Oh, you see, and we're like, but you said this thing was not there. And you know, at that point, the whole world was on blacks, and everybody wanted to satisfy us and everything. So we had to push forward with the black liaison officer. That was how we got it eventually. But we had started before the George Floyd, but it was as if they were reluctant. Their body language was not anywhere near. But you know, they all knew it, and nobody will use their mouth to say that this is it, and it is not written anywhere. So even if we're going to push ahead with it, we still have to be diplomatic. We don't have to fight it out, because really there's nothing written, and they will say we will do it. They'll just not do it.
So what you experience is whiteness.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it has a name. Yeah. So you have to really advocate for it, right? So when there's, everybody can apply to this. Yeah, we know everybody can apply, but whose application is actually taken into consideration? I've had a friend went to a workplace, submitted an application, left. Oh, I have a new phone number. Let me go and put it there. And he was looking at his application in the trash. And I said, why didn't you say anything? It's like, they are not going to give me the job. I said, they are not going to give it to you anyway. It's already there. Yeah. So we cannot keep quiet now. So to answer your question, unconscious bias is implicit bias. That's what you say. We all have it. Because we are trained in a particular culture. We grew up in, we have affinities. We have what we like. We have what we dislike. But the moment it starts affecting somebody else, the bias competes accurately or adequately for that position. But we still don't have that equal opportunity, and that's the problem. So when we begin to see it now, we need to start calling it out. If we are not calling it out, nobody's going to do anything about it. And what I'm actually very happy about now is our children are not in the same, because many of us, first-generation immigrants, we just strive, let's just do this in the midst of difficulties. Your kids are not going to agree with that anymore. Because even when you see how they talk to you, how they answer your question, you know they are not going to stand for that. That's what we have to encourage in them, to make them more confident, so they can go in there and they will know that we have their back, right? So I don't know. I think we can come to a place where all oppression will cease, but that may be in paradise. But we have to try our best now to just be putting our thumb on it and not keeping quiet about it, okay? So I'm going to just move on to this so that you can give me more ideas about, I said create a list of things or of right things you can personally do and what's your responsibility to yourself and your community. So some of this have been covered in the comments, and I like what Afeez said about the community. We have to be present in the community. We have to kind of demonstrate our skills. We have to be looked onto by these young ones. Let them know, okay, we can talk to that uncle, we can talk to that auntie. We should just make ourselves available. And then when we see opportunities all around us, let us toss it to people that could use those opportunities. Because we are not competing against ourselves. We should know that your success is my success. Because we cannot carry, though, if he's more successful than I'm. No, if you are able to eat, and you're able to live in a house, you're able to sleep out, you're okay. So you don't have to drive a Lamborghini, So open up these ideas and avenues and let other people enjoy from your network. And that's what other people do that we don't do as much of. Social networking, right? They call it social capital. So let's benefit from each other's networks, okay? So I'm just very conscious of the time. So If we had time, I would have said create a list. We have talked a bit about this, but let's go to this, doing the right thing also. So these are just some of the encouragements I want to give. Don't derail yourself or what you hope for. Don't let them tell you, no, you can't achieve that here. Who told them you can't? Because it's not been done does not mean it cannot be done. So I say write if you're a writer, but you know that you have to put more time to that. You may have to wake up early, go to bed late. And if you're a writer, don't try to be a dancer. Right? Oh, everybody likes dancers now, so I have to dance. No, a good writer should write. A good dancer should dance. So whatsoever you think you can do and do well, focus on that and do it the best way you can. So, of course, education is important. It doesn't have to be university. The Ontario government is paying for some trade schools now. Right? Why can't we encourage? Before a plumber comes to your house, he gets $80. He hasn't done anything. Electricians, So we can encourage our children. Because I know Nigeria is like everybody has to get bachelor's, master's, PhD. It may really mean nothing because the plumber may be getting paid more than the full professor. Yeah, and that is true. So, but education is important. So it's very frustrating some people quit school, especially black kids. But we have to encourage them. If they are facing problems, let's look at what they are going through. Your kids don't need to be saints before you defend them. Because they can have teachers that are devils. And teachers discriminate too. Because I remember when my daughter was in grade 5, she wanted to use crayon. It's like, Madam, I want to use the crayon. Madam said, no, I'm saving it for next year. So Ryan went to Madam to use crayon. Madam gave crayon to Ryan. My daughter, bold guess, went back to Madam. Ryan is using the crayon. Madam said, yeah. Why did you give it to Ryan when you didn't give it to me? It's mine. I can give it to whoever I want. Grade 5, yeah, that was the first experience of racism that my daughter had. So we have to intervene. It's yours, right? Yeah. But that is inequity. And it was really serious because now we now started seeing that black kids were treated differently. And I wrote a letter to the teacher, to the school board, to the city councillors, and I just blew it out of proportion. And I had to go and have meetings with them at the school board. Yeah. Yeah, we cannot take it lying down. Recently, the police was called into the school. 4-year-old girl was arrested. 4-year-old. How do you arrest a 4-year-old girl? Yeah, disruption, whatever. It's a school in Ontario here. No, they won't. It's like, oh, Johnny is having a bad day. Let's just give him time to sleep. Yeah.
Just having a temper tantrum.
Yeah.
Oh, I had that experience with my son. They called me. Oh,
Yeah.
God. They were at lashed out the principal. And I told him I was going to school board.
Yeah.
They said my son had emotional, whatever it is. They said, oh, and my son needed therapy.
Yeah.
Oh, my son is being bad.
Yeah.
But I said, we've been through different schools. This is the first school
Yeah.
I'm having this experience. So it means there's something you're not doing right.
Exactly.
Something is wrong.
Are you going to add something to that?
Yeah, so I was thinking it's a lot more serious than what we are saying. It's very
Yeah.
dangerous. And I'm suggesting if Nala can even have a kind of committee that people can come to, even if it's just for advice, not necessarily legal representation, because a lot of people don't want to talk. A lot of people are worried about what to say. A lot of times when you have these issues, you talk to maybe a friend, they say, oh, leave it, don't worry, you are imagining it, or it's not that bad. Don't let your children know that you're angry, just so that they'll get through that. Sometimes as a parent, or maybe you're too busy, you just want to get past that stage. Right, but I think if we had, if we knew that even within us as a community, there's 1 or 2 people that are experienced, know what to do, even if to suggest, oh, you could do this or you could do this, especially for newcomers. So imagine if you're a newcomer, you come in with your child, the first few weeks of school, your child gets called a nigger, and then you call someone within the community and say, oh, they just kind of laugh it off, don't worry. And then only for you to find out months later, this happened to me, by the way, they find out months later that this child has literally, basically been ostracized in school. And you didn't know that because children, sometimes they don't say anything. You just notice that the person is always angry. And then you start asking, why are you always angry? Why are you unhappy when you're coming back from school? And then they say, you don't even know what I'm going through in school. I went through school at Western and as a very mature student, and sometimes I wonder if I felt sometimes as bad as I used to feel then what more little children that we have that have to go every single day. So I think it's really very, very serious. We're talking about education, the curriculum, but not even the day-to-day activity. We have to know what to do, where to go to. Even if there's nothing happening, even if it's not even as going as far as the school board, but the person needs to know, everybody needs to know that there's a listening ear. I'm not going through this alone. Sometimes we want to turn a blind and pretend it's not happening. And then related to that, I think that I may be wrong, but I feel like as a student here that NALA is one thing, then student is another thing. Like you're here as a Fanshawe or Western student, and then it's like you're totally on your own. You don't know what is going on. So NALA is doing its own thing at the community level, but there are people that are here as students. They're not necessarily young children. Their families may be back home, but they're here on their own, and they don't know what to do, and they don't really feel as part of the community as other people that are more entrenched, kind of. So my question is how, maybe it's a question, maybe it's a suggestion, how is NALA meeting this need? I don't feel like it is because I went through that, and I'm not only me, there are lots of students that I've recently, sometimes I just send to brother, I say, please, can you help me add this person? Because they don't even know. They just hear that, oh, there's a Nigerian community, but they don't know. But I think maybe consciously reaching out to them, even if it's a reach out every September, oh, new students are coming in. What are we doing about these students? We're talking about employment. We're talking about being established. We have resources within our community. We're not even using them. We have people that are from USAID and all over the world. We're not using them. And they're here. They don't know what is going on. So I think we need to do more about that. Maybe me, myself.
So thank you very much. So we seem to be adding more to the NALA thing. Yes, let's continue. but it's true, just make notes about what we can do to improve.
As a matter of fact, I actually, when it is something something came, to my mind because of the time.
Yes.
So it is just a suggestion. If we can probably have something, a platform like this, like we have a place where we can have discussion, people with different questions, and I see you to be a good facilitator. We can have, because I do watch a program in Nigeria, they call it Brekete Family. I don't know if you, so it's called Brekete Family. This program, they cut across they have connection, they know everybody, the moderator, so the anchor of the program. So if you can have something like that, probably we have somebody like, Brafemi that can record it, put it on the platform, where people can see what we are discussing, people that have issues like that, related issues, they can know that, oh yeah, I can go to this place and discuss the problem I'm having. So, and they know they can get help. I think if we can think about that and try to do something, it will be a good thing.
Thank you. I believe
Nala is making a note of that. Yeah. So I'll just go through this. And by the way, the education thing we are talking about, I know Chinelo is talking about parents actually being intentional about what their children's learn. So if you need to go to your children's school, go. Don't worry whether your kids tell you or not, because sometimes they don't want to tell you stuff so that you don't go to school to embarrass them. Because they feel it's an embarrassment when my mother is there. Yeah, just go anyway. Talk to the teacher, how is everything going? Before any problem ever arises, sometimes, so how is Johnny doing in class? Then you have a conversation that way. And we have to let our people know that being hardworking has no substitute, There are some white kids, some of my friends, my kids' friends that dropped out of university just having one more semester to do because they want to do business. I'm serious. And then I'll say, that boy, is a white boy. If you leave school, if you drop out, I'm no longer interested, I want to do something else. No, you are not doing anything else. Finish this first.
You know, it's no substitute. Yeah. So, and we have to let them see education as self-care also, because the transformation of social class is in education. You know, maybe your father was a farmer, you went to school, you have a better status, at least in the eye of the society, right? Where we are is where our kids are supposed to start. They should do better than us, nothing less. But some kids are just, oh, you know, you have this, you have that, I don't even think I can do all that. You know, let's encourage them. It's not an option. And then, yeah. All right. So, yeah. So don't be ashamed of who you are. Some people, you know, what's that term? Xeno what? Not xenophobia, yeah. Xenocentrism, you know, being ashamed, hating yourself for who you are or your people or people that look like you. No, we should actually love ourselves. So I said, be yourself, expand the city with your dreams instead of just fitting in. Don't do anything just to fit in. About 15 years ago, 20 years ago, if you have dreadlock, you cannot get a job. But now our hair is celebrated. So celebrate yourself. You know, your food is good, your accent is good. All right? We all talk very differently. So you can educate people that oppose you by asking them questions. Everything is not by confrontation. Why did you say that? Let them give you an example. Why did you say that? You know? So take your pace, your space and place, and be a credit to your race. You know, you are not alone. Nobody is alone. We are all interdependent, and you belong here. We are part of the Canadian landmark, okay? And we should make our presence known. All right, so that's the end of it. Thank you for your attention and your participation. Yeah, so we have resources, just some videos and some books. Especially check on the videos. They tell the stories about successes of black people around here. All right? So thank you.